Imagine a kingdom so rich that a single journey shook the world's economy. A king so powerful that his name still echoes through history. This is the story of the Mali Empire, where gold flowed like rivers and knowledge flourished under the reign of the legendary Mansa Musa. The Mali Empire was a powerful and wealthy kingdom in West Africa that existed a long time ago, around 1235 to 1600. It was one of the biggest and richest empires in African history. The empire became famous for its vast lands, stretching across many countries we know today, like Mali, Senegal, and Guinea. The Mali Empire was known for its great wealth, especially because of gold and salt. These valuable resources made the empire very rich, and people from faraway lands admired its prosperity. One of its most famous rulers, Mansa Musa, was known as the richest man in history. During his reign, the empire became even more powerful, and its cities, like Timbuktu, became centers of learning and trade. People traveled from different parts of the world to visit the Mali Empire because of its wealth, culture, and knowledge. It was truly a remarkable place that left a lasting impact on African history. The Mali Empire started after the fall of the Ghana Empire, which was once a powerful and wealthy kingdom in West Africa. The Ghana Empire thrived mainly because of its control over the gold and salt trade. However, over time, it began to weaken due to several factors. Attacks from neighboring groups, internal conflicts, and the loss of trade routes caused Ghana to lose its power and influence. As the Ghana Empire declined, smaller kingdoms and chiefdoms in the region began to rise. One of these smaller kingdoms was called Kangaba. It was home to a young boy named Sundiata Keita. Sundiata was born into the Keita clan, but his early life was difficult. As a child, he could not walk, which made many people doubt his potential as a leader. His mother, Sagalan, faced mockery because of his disability. Despite his struggles, Sundiata was determined to become strong. Over the years, he grew healthier and more resilient, eventually becoming a skilled hunter and warrior. During this time, a powerful and cruel king named Sumangiru Kanti ruled the Sasso kingdom. Sumangiru wanted to expand his territory and took over many of the neighboring lands that once belonged to the Ghana Empire. He was known to be harsh and ruthless, and he feared no one. Sumangiru targeted Kangaba, aiming to control it as well. When Sumangiru threatened Kangaba, Sundiata knew he had to protect his people. By this time, Sundiata had already proven himself to be a capable and fearless leader. He gathered support from other kingdoms and formed an alliance to fight against Sumangiru. The two leaders eventually faced each other in a significant battle known as the Battle of Karina, which took place around 1235. The battle was intense and fierce. Sumangiru was believed to have magical powers, which made him a terrifying opponent. However, Sundiata was wise and strategic. According to legends, Sundiata discovered that Sumangiru's magic could be weakened by striking him with a special arrow made from a white rooster's spur. Armed with this knowledge, Sundiata fought bravely, and his forces defeated Sumangiru's army. Sumangiru fled and was never seen again. With Sumangiru defeated, Sundiata became a hero and earned great respect from the people. He united the various clans and kingdoms that had once been under Ghana's rule, forming a new, powerful empire called Mali. As the first emperor of Mali, Sundiata established laws, encouraged farming, and made trade thrive once again. His leadership marked the beginning of the Great Mali Empire, which would go on to become one of the richest and most influential empires in African history. Through his bravery and determination, Sundiata Keita transformed from an unlikely hero to a legendary king, laying the foundation for an empire that would last for centuries. The Golden Age of Mali began when a remarkable ruler named Mansa Musa came to the throne. Mansa Musa was one of the richest and most powerful kings in history, and he ruled Mali from around 1312 to 1337. Under his leadership, the Mali Empire became stronger, richer, and more famous than ever before. Mansa Musa became the emperor after his predecessor, Abu Bakr II, went on a long sea expedition and never returned. Mansa Musa was a wise and just leader who believed in fairness and helping his people. His main goal was to make Mali prosperous and respected by other kingdoms and empires. One of the most famous events during Mansa Musa's reign was his pilgrimage to Mecca, also known as the Hajj. As a devout Muslim, Mansa Musa wanted to fulfill his religious duty of visiting Mecca, the holy city of Islam. This journey took place around 1324 and was not just a simple trip, it was a grand and magnificent event that the world had never seen before. Mansa Musa did not travel alone. He took a huge entourage with him, including thousands of soldiers, servants, musicians, and camels. Some accounts say there were about 60,000 people in his caravan. Mansa Musa also took plenty of gold with him, tons of it. There were 100 camels, each carrying hundreds of pounds of gold. The caravan was an incredible sight as it moved through the deserts and cities on the way to Mecca. Mansa Musa wore the finest clothes, and his followers also dressed in rich fabrics. They played music, sang songs, and moved with grace and pride. People who saw this massive group were amazed. Mansa Musa's journey did more than just fulfill his religious duty, it showcased Mali's immense wealth to the world. Along the way, he was generous to everyone he met. In Cairo, Egypt, he gave away so much gold that it caused inflation. This means that gold became less valuable because there was so much of it. Prices for goods went up and stayed high for years. Mansa Musa also built mosques and supported local economies by spending a lot of money. He donated gold to the poor, gave gifts to local leaders, and impressed everyone with his kindness and wealth. Word of his generosity and riches spread across the Middle East and Europe. Mali became famous as a land of gold and great wealth. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage had a lasting impact on Mali. After his return, he focused on improving his empire. He built many schools, libraries, and mosques, especially in the city of Timbuktu, which became a center of learning and culture. Scholars, poets, and scientists came from far and wide to study there. He also encouraged trade by making the empire peaceful and safe for traders. Mali was rich in natural resources like gold and salt, and traders from other places wanted to exchange their goods for these valuable items. Under Mansa Musa's rule, Mali became an important hub for trade, connecting West Africa to North Africa and beyond. Mansa Musa wanted his people to have a good life, so he promoted agriculture too. Farmers grew crops like millet, sorghum, and rice. The economy flourished because people could trade food and gold with neighboring regions. Mansa Musa's reign marked the height of Mali's power and influence. His wealth, generosity, and commitment to learning made Mali one of the greatest empires of its time. Even after his death, the stories of his pilgrimage and his golden kingdom remained legendary. People from other countries continued to talk about the mighty king who gave away so much gold that it changed the economy. Mansa Musa's achievements went beyond gold and riches. He made Mali a respected and admired empire, spreading knowledge, faith, and prosperity throughout his vast kingdom. To this day, he is remembered as one of the most generous and successful rulers in history. The Mali Empire was one of the richest and most powerful empires in West Africa. Its wealth came from controlling important trade routes that crossed the Sahara Desert. These routes connected West Africa with North Africa and beyond. By managing these routes, Mali became the center of trade for goods like gold, salt, and even slaves. In ancient times, traveling across the Sahara Desert was very difficult and dangerous. People traveled in large groups called caravans to stay safe. These caravans were made up of camels, traders, and guards. They moved slowly through the hot, dry desert, carrying goods to trade. Mali controlled many of the routes these caravans used, and that control made the empire very wealthy. One of the most valuable items traded along these routes was gold. Mali had a lot of gold mines, especially in places like Bambouk and Beret. Gold was highly prized because it was used to make coins, jewelry, and luxury items. People from Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East wanted Mali's gold, so traders came from far away just to get it. But gold wasn't the only valuable resource. Mali also controlled the trade of salt. Salt was so important back then because it was used to preserve food and make it taste better. The salt came from the Sahara, especially from places like Tagaza. People in West Africa needed salt to survive, so it was almost as valuable as gold. Mali's leaders, including famous rulers like Mansa Musa, made sure to tax the goods that passed through their land. Traders had to pay a fee when they entered and left Mali. This tax made the empire even richer. The money collected from taxes was used to build cities, support education, and strengthen the military. Another part of Mali's economy was the slave trade. Unfortunately, during those times, people were captured in wars or raids and sold as slaves. These slaves were often taken north through the Sahara to be sold in North Africa or even further. The slave trade was one more way Mali grew wealthy, even though it was a dark and painful part of history. Mali's wealth was not only seen in gold and salt, it was also visible in its bustling cities. Two of the most famous cities were Timbuktu and Gao. Timbuktu was the hub of learning and trade. The city was like a shining jewel in the Mali Empire. It was a place where trade, education, and culture flourished. Caravans from across the desert would come to Timbuktu, bringing goods from many lands. The city was filled with traders, scholars, and craftsmen. The city's markets were lively and full of energy. Traders sold gold, salt, ivory, and even books. Books were very valuable because they contained knowledge and were handwritten. Timbuktu became famous not just for its wealth but for its universities and libraries. Scholars came to study subjects like math, astronomy, medicine, and religion. Because people from many different cultures came to Timbuktu, the city became a place where ideas were shared. This made it a center for both commerce and scholarship. Mansa Musa helped build Timbuktu's reputation by funding schools and mosques. One of the most famous buildings was the University of Sankore, where people from all over came to learn. Another important city in Mali was Gao. Gao was a bustling trade center strategically located near the Niger River, making it an ideal spot for trade. Goods could be transported by boat or camel, making Gao a busy and wealthy place. Like Timbuktu, Gao was known for its markets and trading activities. Traders would exchange gold, salt, textiles, and other goods. The city also had beautiful mud brick mosques and buildings that showed off the wealth and craftsmanship of the empire. The wealth from trade helped Gao grow into a political and economic hub. It was not just a place to make money but also a place where the rulers of Mali kept control over the region. Gao remained a vital city throughout the Mali Empire's existence. The trade routes controlled by Mali were like lifelines connecting the empire to the rest of the world. They brought in goods that Mali did not have, like textiles and luxury items from the north, while sending out gold, salt, and slaves. Controlling these routes made Mali powerful. Not only did the empire become wealthy, but it also gained respect and influence. Neighboring kingdoms and empires admired Mali's prosperity and stability. Rulers from other lands wanted to build good relationships with Mali because they saw how powerful and influential it was. The money made from these trade routes allowed the leaders of Mali to build grand cities, support learning, and maintain a strong military. The bustling cities of Timbuktu and Gao became symbols of Mali's success. People still remember them as places where wealth and knowledge came together. Mali's control over the trade routes left a lasting legacy. Even after the empire's decline, the stories of its wealth and powerful cities continued to be told. Timbuktu, in particular, remained a symbol of knowledge and prosperity. Today, historians look back at the Mali Empire as an example of how trade can build a strong and lasting civilization. The bustling markets, the scholarly pursuits, and the wealth from gold and salt remind us of a time when Mali was one of the greatest empires in the world. The Mali Empire was a vibrant and diverse place where different cultures and beliefs blended together. One of the most important parts of Mali's culture was its religion. The empire was known for being a center of Islam, but traditional beliefs also played a significant role. This mix of faiths made Mali a unique and interesting place. Islam came to Mali through trade. Arab and North African merchants traveled along the trans-Saharan trade routes, bringing not only goods like salt and gold but also their religion. These traders would talk to local people about their beliefs, and over time, many Malians started to follow Islam. One of the most important reasons Islam spread in Mali was because the rulers themselves accepted it. The most famous of these rulers was Mansa Musa, who was known for being a devout Muslim. He made a pilgrimage to Mecca that showed the world just how wealthy and devoted to Islam he was. After that, Islam became even more respected throughout the empire. However, even before Mansa Musa, earlier kings like Sundiata Keita had already started to embrace Islam. Though Sundiata respected Islam, he did not force it on his people. Instead, he let people practice their own beliefs freely. This openness allowed Islam to gradually become more common without creating conflicts. Even though Islam was the main focus in Timbuktu, the city still reflected the diverse culture of Mali. People spoke different languages, including Arabic, Songhai, and Bambara. This mix of cultures made Timbuktu a lively and exciting place. Religion influenced many aspects of daily life in Mali. Since most people practiced Islam, they would pray 5 times a day, facing the holy city of Mecca. On Fridays, people gathered at the mosque for the Jumu'ah prayer, a special weekly prayer service. People also followed Islamic rules like fasting during Ramadan. During this month, Muslims would not eat or drink from dawn until sunset. This practice showed their devotion and taught them patience and self-control. Despite the influence of Islam, traditional beliefs still had their place. In some villages, people continued to practice rituals that honored nature spirits and ancestors. They believed that combining both sets of beliefs could bring them blessings and protection. Islam didn't just shape religious practices, it also influenced culture and education. Islamic teachings encouraged reading and writing, so literacy became important in Mali. Many children, especially boys, learned to read the Quran and studied in local Islamic schools. Wealthier families could send their children to study in cities like Timbuktu. Poetry and storytelling also flourished, often inspired by Islamic themes. Poets wrote about faith, love, wisdom, and the greatness of Allah. These poems were sometimes performed during celebrations or religious gatherings. Music and dance, which were deeply rooted in traditional beliefs, continued to thrive. Though Islamic teachings generally discouraged dancing, people still enjoyed musical performances during special events, blending religious songs with local rhythms. The way Islam blended with traditional beliefs made the Mali Empire unique. People found a way to honor their ancestors while also following Islamic practices. This blending of beliefs didn't lead to conflict but rather created a harmonious cultural identity. Through their faith and culture, the people of Mali built a strong, diverse society. Timbuktu's role as a learning center and the respectful blending of beliefs helped the empire become known not just for its wealth but also for its wisdom. In the end, Mali's religious and cultural mix became a symbol of unity and diversity. It showed that even when new ideas come in, old traditions don't have to disappear. Instead, they can come together to create something beautiful and unique. The Mali Empire was a powerful and well-organized kingdom in West Africa. It had a unique way of governing and a clear social structure that helped keep everything running smoothly. At the heart of this system was the Mansa, or king, who held the most power and respect. Besides the Mansa, there were also provincial governors who helped manage the vast empire. The people of Mali also followed a social hierarchy, which means there was a clear ranking of people based on their roles and importance. One of the most respected groups in this structure were the griots, talented storytellers and historians who played a key role in keeping the culture and history alive. The word Mansa means king or emperor. The Mansa was the most powerful person in the Mali Empire, almost like a father to the whole kingdom. He was seen as a leader chosen not just by people but also blessed by the spirits and ancestors. This made him both a political and spiritual leader. The Mansa made all the big decisions. He decided how to protect the empire, whom to trade with, and how to solve conflicts between people. One of his most important jobs was to keep the peace and make sure everyone in the empire felt safe. If there was a problem between two villages or families, people would look to the Mansa to fix it. The Mansa also controlled the wealth of the empire. Mali was rich in gold, salt, and other valuable resources. The Mansa made sure that these resources were used wisely. He would trade gold and other goods with neighboring kingdoms, bringing even more wealth to Mali. The Mansa was not only powerful but also expected to be fair and just. He had to listen to the concerns of his people and make sure that everyone was treated with respect. Sometimes, the Mansa would hold public meetings where people could come and express their worries or ask for help. One of the most famous Mansas was Mansa Musa, who ruled Mali during its golden age. He was known not only for his incredible wealth but also for being a wise and generous leader. Mansa Musa made a famous pilgrimage to Mecca, showing the world Mali's greatness. When the Mansa traveled or met important guests, he did so with great ceremony. People would line the streets to see him, and musicians played drums and horns to honor him. This showed how much respect the people had for their king. The Mali Empire was vast, stretching across many lands and including different groups of people. To manage such a big empire, the Mansa appointed provincial governors. These governors were chosen from trusted families or noble clans and were in charge of specific regions within the empire. The provincial governors made sure that the Mansa's rules and decisions were followed in their areas. They also collected taxes, kept the peace, and managed local disputes. If there was a serious problem that the governor couldn't solve, it would be reported to the Mansa. Governors also ensured that the trade routes within their provinces were safe. This was very important because Mali depended on the trade of gold, salt, and other goods. The governors would sometimes travel with armed guards to protect merchants from bandits. The governors had to be loyal to the Mansa. If they did a good job, they were rewarded with land, cattle, and gifts. If they disobeyed or mistreated the people, they could be removed from power. The Mali Empire had a clear social structure that kept everyone in their place. At the top was the Mansa, followed by the royal family and nobles. Below them were the warriors, who protected the empire. Next were the traders and merchants, who played a crucial role in keeping the economy strong. After them were the farmers and craftsmen, who produced food and made everyday items. At the bottom were the servants and slaves, who did the hardest work and had the fewest rights. Despite being at the bottom, slaves in Mali were often treated better than in other places. They could work on farms or in households, and sometimes they could earn their freedom. Some slaves even became trusted advisors to the Mansa. One of the most unique and important groups in Mali were the griots. Griots were more than just storytellers, they were the keepers of history and tradition. They memorized stories about past kings, heroic battles, and important events. Since Mali didn't have written records in the way we do today, griots were the living libraries of the empire. They would recite stories, poems, and songs that taught people about their heritage and values. Griots were also advisors to kings, helping them remember the lessons of the past. Being a griot was a lifelong role, passed down from parent to child. A young griot would learn from older ones, memorizing long tales and practicing storytelling. It wasn't just about remembering the words but also about performing with passion and emotion. Griots could influence the community because their stories taught moral lessons and celebrated the bravery of ancestors. They could also shape public opinion about the Mansa or local leaders, making them highly respected yet sometimes feared. Griots kept the people connected to their past. When people gathered around the fire at night, the griot would begin to sing or speak, and everyone would listen closely. These stories gave people a sense of belonging and pride. Griots didn't just tell happy tales, they also spoke of mistakes and failures, reminding leaders to be humble and fair. Through their stories, they taught the younger generation about courage, loyalty, and justice. Even when kings like Mansa Musa ruled with great power, they still respected the griots. They knew that griots held the memory of the empire and could share stories that made people proud to be part of Mali. The governance of Mali was strong because the Mansa had both power and respect. By appointing loyal provincial governors, he made sure that the whole empire stayed united and peaceful. At the same time, the social structure gave everyone a place and role, keeping society orderly and balanced. The griots, with their captivating tales and songs, kept the spirit of the empire alive. They reminded the people of their rich history and the lessons from their ancestors. In this way, governance and culture worked hand in hand, making Mali not just a wealthy empire but also a culturally rich and stable community. The Mali Empire was not just famous for its wealth and strong leaders but also for its beautiful art, impressive architecture, and amazing learning centers. These aspects made Mali a cultural powerhouse during its time. The people of Mali took great pride in their artistic skills, grand buildings, and love for knowledge. Let's explore how Mali's art, architecture, and learning flourished. Art was an important part of life in the Mali Empire. People expressed themselves through crafts, sculptures, music, and storytelling. Mali's artists used materials they found around them, like clay, wood, ivory, and metal, to create beautiful works. One of the most famous art forms was sculpture. Skilled craftsmen made terracotta statues, which were clay figures baked in the sun to become hard and durable. These statues often showed people, animals, or important symbols. Some sculptures showed warriors with weapons or musicians playing instruments. Others showed animals, like horses or cattle, which were important in everyday life. The Mali Empire was also known for beautiful jewelry. Craftsmen made stunning gold and bead necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. These items were not only pretty but also showed status and wealth. People who wore gold jewelry were often from rich or noble families. Music was just as important as visual art. The people of Mali loved to sing, dance, and play instruments. Griots, who were the storytellers, often used musical instruments like the kora, a stringed harp, drums, and balafons, wooden xylophones, to make their stories more lively. The songs and rhythms reflected the people's emotions and told stories of heroes, history, and daily life. When it came to building structures, Mali was truly remarkable. The people of Mali created massive, beautiful buildings that were both functional and impressive to look at. One of the most famous architectural achievements of the Mali Empire was the Djinguereber Mosque. The Djinguereber Mosque, built in the city of Timbuktu, was an extraordinary sight. It was built in 1327 during the reign of Mansa Musa, who wanted to make Timbuktu a center of learning and worship. The mosque was designed by an Andalusian architect named Abu Es Haq Es Saheli, whom Mansa Musa met during his famous pilgrimage to Mecca. The mosque was made from mud bricks, straw, and wood. The builders used these materials because they were locally available and helped keep the building cool in the hot climate. The walls were thick and smooth, and the wooden beams sticking out of the walls gave it a unique appearance. These beams were not just for decoration, they also helped support the structure. The mosque had 3 inner courtyards and large prayer halls. It was not just a place to pray but also a center for learning. People gathered there to read and study important texts. The minaret, or tower, was tall and visible from far away, calling people to prayer. The Djinguereber Mosque became a symbol of Mali's devotion to Islam and its architectural brilliance. Other cities like Gao and Niani also had grand buildings. The buildings in Mali often had flat roofs and square shapes, designed to withstand the hot, dry climate. The homes of wealthy people were more decorated, while common people lived in simpler mud brick houses. Mali was not just known for its buildings but also for its love of knowledge. One of the most famous centers of learning in the Mali Empire was the city of Timbuktu. Timbuktu was like a shining star of education, attracting scholars from far and wide. People came to Timbuktu to learn, teach, and share ideas. The city had madrasas, Islamic schools, where students studied subjects like Islamic law, mathematics, astronomy, and literature. Many of these schools were connected to mosques, like the Djinguereber Mosque. One of the most important things that made Timbuktu famous was its manuscripts. These were handwritten books and documents filled with knowledge and wisdom. The manuscripts covered topics like science, religion, history, and poetry. Scholars carefully wrote them down on paper made from tree bark or animal skin. These documents were precious and were kept in libraries or private collections. Some manuscripts were written in Arabic, while others were in local languages. They showed how people in Mali blended their traditional knowledge with Islamic teachings. These manuscripts were not just for the rich, they were treasured by the scholars and students who valued learning. Learning in Mali was not just about getting smarter, it was also about gaining respect and status. People who were educated became advisors to the Mansa or teachers in the community. Griots, who passed down oral traditions, also valued written records because they added depth to their stories. Mansa Musa, the famous ruler of Mali, was passionate about education and scholarship. After his pilgrimage to Mecca, he brought back scholars and architects who helped build Timbuktu's reputation as a city of learning. Because of his efforts, Timbuktu became known throughout the world as a place where knowledge thrived. Mali's dedication to art, architecture, and learning left a lasting mark on history. The beautiful sculptures, stunning jewelry, and vibrant music showed how creative the people were. The grand buildings, especially the Jingureber Mosque, stood as a testament to Mali's architectural genius. But perhaps most importantly, the love for learning turned Timbuktu into a hub of knowledge. The city's manuscripts are still celebrated today as treasures of African heritage. The scholars and students of Mali made sure that the wisdom of the past would be remembered for generations. The Mali Empire's commitment to creativity, craftsmanship, and knowledge helped it become one of the greatest civilizations in African history. Through art, architecture, and learning, Mali not only enriched its own culture but also inspired the world. The Mali Empire was once one of the greatest empires in Africa, known for its immense wealth, culture, and strong leadership. However, like many powerful empires, Mali eventually faced challenges that led to its decline. Although the empire fell, its legacy still lives on in modern West Africa. Let's explore why the empire declined and how it continues to shape the region today. The Mali Empire began to weaken for several reasons, which combined over time to make it lose its power and influence. These factors include succession crises, internal conflicts, and external invasions. One of the biggest problems the Mali Empire faced was succession crises. A succession crisis happens when it's not clear who will take over the throne after a ruler dies. This confusion and disagreement often lead to fighting among family members or nobles. When Mansa Musa, the famous and wealthy ruler, died, the empire began to face these crises. Mansa Musa's son, Mansa Maganai, took over, but he was not as strong or capable as his father. People began to lose confidence in his leadership. After him, the throne changed hands many times, and some rulers were weak or corrupt. As each new leader came and went, the unity of the empire weakened. Sometimes, rival family members or powerful generals would fight for the throne. This created a lot of instability because instead of focusing on governing the vast empire, leaders and nobles were busy arguing and fighting among themselves. As succession crises weakened the central leadership, internal conflicts started to tear the empire apart. The Mali Empire was made up of many different kingdoms and tribes, each with its own customs and leaders. While a strong Mansa could keep them united, a weak leader could not. Some regions and local rulers started to break away from Mali, declaring independence or forming smaller kingdoms. These regions felt that the central government could no longer protect or benefit them, so they decided to manage their own affairs. Additionally, some governors and generals who were once loyal to the Mansa began to rebel. They wanted more power for themselves and did not want to send taxes or soldiers to the capital anymore. This further reduced the central authorities' control. Sometimes, ethnic groups that felt mistreated or overlooked would also rise against the empire. Without a strong, respected Mansa to keep them united, these internal rebellions made it even harder for Mali to remain powerful. While internal conflicts were weakening the empire from the inside, external threats were also becoming more serious. Other empires and kingdoms noticed that Mali was not as strong as before, and they saw this as an opportunity to attack and take land. One of the most significant external threats came from the Songhai Empire. The Songhai people had once been part of the Mali Empire, but as Mali weakened, Songhai leaders began to expand their territory. Eventually, they became strong enough to challenge Mali directly. They started taking over important trade routes and cities that once belonged to Mali, like Gao. In the north, the Tuareg warriors also took advantage of Mali's weakness. They attacked and captured cities like Timbuktu, which was not only an economic hub but also a center of learning. Losing Timbuktu was a significant blow to Mali's reputation and control. Other neighboring kingdoms and nomadic groups also began raiding Mali's borders. Since the empire was so vast, it became hard to defend all the territories at once. As more regions fell to invaders or declared independence, the Mali Empire shrank and became just a shadow of its former glory. Although the Mali Empire eventually declined, its legacy continues to influence modern West Africa in many ways. The memory of Mali's greatness and prosperity still inspires pride among the people in the region. The stories of legendary leaders like Sundiata Keita and Mansa Musa have become important parts of West African folklore and oral history. Griots, the storytellers of the region, still sing songs about these great rulers and their achievements. The tales remind people of a time when Mali was powerful, wealthy, and respected. The traditions of music, art, and storytelling that flourished during the Mali Empire continue to thrive. Instruments like the kora and traditional chants are still used to tell stories and celebrate heritage. The love for oral history remains strong, and the role of griots is still respected. Mali's legacy as a center of Islamic learning lives on, especially in cities like Timbuktu, which remains a symbol of knowledge. The manuscripts of Timbuktu, some dating back to the empire's peak, continue to be preserved and studied. They show how Mali was once a hub of culture and education. Islam, which became widely practiced during the Mali Empire, is still the dominant religion in many West African countries. The blending of Islamic teachings with local traditions that started in Mali continues to shape religious practices in the region today. The Mali Empire's control of the gold and salt trade set a standard for how to manage resources and trade routes. Even though the empire no longer exists, the cities that once thrived under Mali, like Timbuktu and Gao, still bear marks of their rich trading history. The idea of using trade to build power and wealth remains important in West Africa. Today, the region continues to be rich in gold, salt, and other natural resources, much like in the days of the Mali Empire. The legacy of strong leaders like Sundiata Keita and Mansa Musa has left a lasting mark on how leadership is viewed in the region. The concept of a wise, just, and respected ruler who cares for the people is still seen as an ideal. Mansa Musa's ability to balance wealth, education, and faith is particularly admired. The idea of a centralized government with regional leaders, which Mali once practiced, has also influenced modern governance systems in the region. Even after the empire fell, the memory of unity and strong leadership remained important. Though the Mali Empire eventually declined, its impact on culture, religion, trade, and leadership can still be felt across West Africa. The stories of its great rulers, the beautiful music and art, and the spirit of learning and growth remain strong. Today, the legacy of the Mali Empire continues to shape West Africa. Its contributions to Islamic learning, culture, and governance still resonate in the region. The traditions of storytelling, music, and scholarship that flourished during the empire remain part of the vibrant cultural identity of modern Mali and its neighboring countries. In global history, the Mali Empire stands as a symbol of African strength, leadership, and innovation. Its story reminds us of a time when Africa was a hub of trade, knowledge, and culture. The empire's rich legacy continues to inspire pride and serves as a powerful reminder of Africa's historical achievements.